This movement started 17 years ago, so right after the World War II, exactly as a way to use sport as a way to rehabilitate and include persons with disability. At the time, it was injured military personnel into the society. The founder of our movement, Sir Ludwig Guttmann, I remember that he used to say something like, "I want every disabled person in the world to become a taxpayer." This means citizenship. This means being an active contributor to the society. And he had this brilliant idea of using sport, first as a rehabilitation tool, and then as an international or a global sport movement. And this is what we are now. When we say an inclusive role through parasport, I think we want to play a major role when it comes to human rights. We want to go back to where Sir Ludwig Guttmann started 70 years ago. We want that sport can really change society, and not only at the games, not only at the Paralympic Games, but on a day-to-day basis. What happens every 4 years is fantastic, but what happens in between? Even if you count summer and winter, what happens in this period between the games every 2 years, in the 2 years period? We are a sport organization. We will never cease to be a sport organization, but how can we connect sport to society in a way that we change the attitudes? Because the only way to change reality is to change first the mentality, then change attitudes. So how do we do that? First of all, by leading the Paralympic movement. So we lead the Paralympic movement, and we lead this movement of 182 national Paralympic committees, more than 15 international federations, a series of organizing committees around the world. So as we speak now, we are working together with Tokyo 2020 organizing committee. We're working with Beijing 2022, Paris 2024, Milano Cortina 2026, and LA 2028. So this is an ongoing process for us, and because of course the games are the catalyst. So we try to lead the Paralympic movements, bring all the stakeholders together in the same direction. We oversee the delivery of the Paralympic Games. After all, it's our flagship event, is the event that really drives change into society. The Paralympic Games is now the third largest sport event in the world, but it's the #1 sport event when it comes to driving social inclusion. And we do it trying to enable the para-athletes to achieve sporting excellence. So it's to enable them. It's not doing for them. It's providing the pathway. It's providing, let's say, the platform so that the athletes can achieve sporting excellence, and with this inspire the change in the world that we want. So in order to achieve, let's say, our goal when it comes to human rights, when it comes to a more inclusive society, we need to be the best sport organization that we could be. Because sport is, as far as we know, the most powerful tool when it comes to inclusion, when it comes to education, promotion of health, when it comes to promoting citizenship of persons with disability. And how do we do? How do we lead? We lead by serving. We lead by serving our members. We like to say that we are athlete-centered organization. So our primary focus is on our athletes, but we do it through the membership. The National Paralympic Committee of Finland is in contact and is providing programs and services to the Finnish athletes on a day-to-day basis. How is the best thing that we could do is to support the National Paralympic Committee of Finland in this, with their goals, with their objectives, providing pathways, providing an international calendar where the athletes can participate, providing opportunities where NPC Finland can develop itself, but not, of course, not only the NPC of Finland. We're talking about 182 NPCs in the world. So this, as you see in the slide, to strengthen the effectiveness of the Paralympic movement at all levels, this is is the #1 strategic objective. It's how the International Paralympic Committee can support its membership to go to their next level. Of course, the next level for the National Paralympic Committee of Finland is different from the next level of the National Paralympic Committee, let's say, of Australia, of South Africa, of Hungary. So it's how we can, through a series of programs, initiatives, competitions, alliances, campaigns, help support the development of each and every National Paralympic Committee in the world, so they can provide the best set of services to the athletes in their nations. The second strategic objective is to enhance the Paralympic Games experience and further its reach as a celebration of human diversity. We want the Games to be recognized as, let's say, the #1 event in the world to celebrate, to value disability. We hear quite often the expression tolerance, and we don't like it. We prefer respect, and we prefer to value disability. It's the only event in humanity that values disability, where disability is celebrated. And we want to expand its reach. Today in the Paralympic Games, we reach 2 million people in the stands, and last Paralympic Summer Games, we have reached 4 billion people through broadcasting, through the different TV channels around the world, including online. The Games should be a catalyst, a moment where we get together and all our activation activities, our commercial efforts, our efforts when it comes to change society, all these comes together with the athletes at the center stage, with the athletes being the ones inspiring the world, but of course all different activities leading to this change, this, let's say, long-lasting change that we want to leave as a legacy in society. And when we say we want to expand its reach, it's because we don't want only, for example, that what happens in Tokyo next year, because we will have the Paralympic Games in Tokyo next year, change attitudes and changes realities in Tokyo. No, we wanted to, what happens in Tokyo changes attitudes around the world. And it has happened before. It has happened in my own country with Rio 2016. It has happened in Sochi in Russia with the Sochi Games. It has happened in UK with the London Games, and it will happen again in China in 2 years' time after we have made some very good strides in 2008. Next slide, please. As I have said, we want to drive this cultural shift. We want to use parasport as a vehicle, as a tool. Again, we need allies, we need great organizations, and we will do a series of campaigns now for Tokyo that you see with very strong organizations, because we want the Games to really be something that changes society from within. And of course, society in Finland is one way, society in Brazil is another way, society, let's say, in Australia is something different. So we need to have programs, initiatives, campaigns that bring together, and through broadcasters we can reach the whole world, and with that change what happened in Tokyo, change the mindset of someone who, let's say, is in Finland, why not, watching the athletes on TV. Next slide, please. In order to do that, we need to become a better organization. We need to and this is one of our strategic objectives, is the continuous pursuit of excellence in everything that we do. You know, athletes, they display an incredible performances in the field of play, excellence, high performance. We need to be an organization that reflects that on a day-to-day basis. So this objective is more linked to our, let's say, day-to-day as an organization. Next slide, and I think this will be interesting for you. Sorry if I'm being too fast. I'm trying to stick with my 15 minutes limit. We want to develop and deliver a great statement that globally positions our vision and mission. We are about sport. We have the athletes at the center of our organization. We do it through our membership, and we want to change the world. How through sport, how can we translate that into a brand? So it starts with the brand statement. Let's go to the next slide, please. As simple as that. Change starts with sport. We have seen it in many different nations in the world. I can give you an example. For example, in Russia, if you remember, the Olympic Games in 1980 took place in Moscow. At the time, the Soviet Union said, we will not host the Paralympic Games because there is no such thing as a disabled person in this country. Of course, that was not an accurate portrayal of the situation at the time. But if you think that in Sochi 2014, 34 years later, the first accessibility law in Russia recognizing the rights of persons with disability was enacted exactly because of the Paralympic Games in Sochi taking place in that country. So a few months prior to the Games, change already started to happen in Russia. But it has happened in many different countries. In the UK, for example, after the Paralympic Games in London, we have now 1 million of persons with impairment more in employment than before the games. And we like to think, and we have some data that shows that there is a connection between the hosting of the Paralympic Games in 2012 and, let's say, this increased number of persons with disability in the marketplace. Next slide, please. If change starts with sport, we want to change. Can you click a little bit more in three pillars? One, attitude. We want the attitude of people to change. We want to, what happens in the field of play, the inspiration that someone watching the Paralympic Games, seeing an athlete, a blind athlete run 100 meters in 10 seconds, when they see boccia, when they see goalball, when they see amazing display of sport and athleticism in the field of play, that this changes their mindset and change the attitude. The only way to change attitudes in the real world is to change the understanding and the approach of, let's say, society when it comes to persons with disability. We want to target mobility. People with persons with disability, they need to come and go. They need, in our case, they need to have access to the training venues, to the competition venues. They need, one of the biggest challenges of athletes with disability in developing countries, for example, is accessible transport. Also when it comes to international traveling, because our athletes, they travel around the world competing. So mobility is an important aspect of what we want to change in the world. We want a world without barriers and athletes coming and going, not only to competition and training, but in their day-to-day lives. And opportunity. We want people with disability to have opportunities at every level in society. When it comes to employment, for example, and we think employment is a very important aspect of it. Going back to where Sir Ludwig Gutmann started 70 years ago, about every disabled person in the world becoming a taxpayer. We believe employment makes people contribute to society, and this is perceived by society. When you see someone with a disability working, being recognized as someone who contributes to society, people understand that he or she can be whatever they want to do. A good employee, a good boss, a good partner, a good friend, someone who actively contributes into society. And I know that the Finnish society is very, let's say, advanced, but in many areas of the world, people with a disability are still perceived as second-class citizens, and this is exactly what we want to change when it comes to using sport to change attitudes around the world. Next slide, please. The games are growing, the movement is growing, the awareness levels of Paralympic sport globally, they increased from 65% in 2015 to 83% in 2018. Paralympic fans around the world, we have a big share of the millennials and women. We have data that shows that how the high level of interest of women when it comes to Paralympic sport. As I have mentioned before, we became the third biggest sport event in the world, but the number one when it comes to driving social inclusion. As I have mentioned before, we have, for a few games in a row, we have been increasing numbers when it comes to people buying tickets to go to the venues and watch the Paralympic Games at the venues, but also when it comes to television broadcasting. In the Rio Games, we had 4.3 billion of people watching it live around the world. Next slide, please. So the movement is growing, the games are becoming more relevant and more important. And when it comes to partners, and here we have we can see Allianz, who is a global partner of the International Paralympic Committee. And through their involvement with the International Paralympic Committee, they move to have a relationship also with the International Olympic Committee. So it's not that we have partners coming from the Olympic world. We also have partners who started in the Paralympic world and went to the Olympic world. The country consulting have this data here, this information that brands with a high sense of purpose have seen their brand valuation increase by 175% over the past 12 years, versus a median growth rate of 86% and a growth rate of 70% for brands with a low sense of purpose. So brands with purpose, they are more valued. They are valued by their consumers, by their partners, by their commercial partners. Let's check the next slide, please. Because consumers want purpose. Kantar Consulting again in this year, looking to the future, almost 2/3 of millennials and centennials who are fast becoming the economic engine. And together with women, remember, women are the #1 decision makers when it comes to the decisions made at home about buying products here and there. They are becoming the economic engine. They express a preference for brands that have a point of view and stands for something. And no doubt that the brand that aligns or the brand that connects with the Paralympic movement, which connects to the National Paralympic Committee, connects with athletes, they have a stronger recognition by their consumers. I wanted to show you two examples of activation coming exactly from Allianz. Next slide, please. Oh, here we are. The Chasing Greatness. Next slide. Yeah. The story of Greg Polychronidis. Greg is a household name in Greece. He's a bocce player, Paralympic champion, one of the smartest human beings I know. And we have this series called Chasing Greatness with Allianz. Videos, interviews with different athletes from different nations. So we activate internationally, but also we do a lot of effort on a national level. And they are telling the story of 10 para-athletes who aim to inspire the next generation. So they are not only great athletes, they are great citizens, they are great persons. They do something amazing outside the field of play as well. So we have reached 52 million video views, 107 million reach, more than 300,000 engagements. And of course, Allianz is very proud and very happy with these results. Next slide. There's another initiative that it's a winning mindset, lessons from the Paralympics. So it's a podcast series profiling leading Paralympians, and they share their experiences in overcoming challenges, how they became Paralympians, but also connecting, let's say, to the personal and professional life of whoever is listening to it. So Allianz is supporting this series of podcasts. You can download it, you can listen to it, and it's amazing the connection that these athletes are able to do between their sport careers, the challenges that they overcame with the daily life of persons who doesn't have any relationship with sport, for example. And it's not by chance that we started this podcast series during, let's say, this pandemic period, when mental health is something absolutely fundamental to take care of. People are having a lot of doubts, uncertainty. It's the #1, let's say, characteristic of this period, and having these lessons coming from Paralympians in a way that people can translate it to their daily lives is something that really, really is inspiring. And Allianz, again, is very happy with the, let's say, the reach, and sometimes with the reach within their own network of employees. You know, Allianz is present in many nations around the world, and to have, let's say, Paralympic athletes inspiring their own workforce has been a great result for them. So these are only a few examples of activation when it comes more to the inspirational bit, to the purpose bit. But of course, you have the traditional ways of activating the sponsorship coming from all of our commercial partners. Next and last slide. If you haven't seen yet Rising Phoenix, which is a Netflix original documentary profiling the Paralympic movement, 9 Paralympic athletes, and with a little bit of the drama towards the Rio 2016 Games, you need to watch it as soon as possible. It's absolutely incredible how the directors and the producers were able to capture what we are as a movement, what do we stand for as a movement, and who are the athletes we serve.